Chris, or whoever is functioning as
Yep.
up. You want to kick
Almost
it off?
ready to go.
All right, fantastic.
Done.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. It is 1:02 p.m. We are late because the chair was late and she apologizes, but we are live on a digital platform. Present for today's meeting, we have from City Council, Randy Allison, Eric Biter, and myself, Liz Mealy. We're all members of the Finance Committee. From the administration, we have Mayor Derek Slaughter, Jamie Livermore from Finance, Valerie Fessler from Community Development, Kevin Mackey from the Treasurer's Office, Melanie Schutt from our Grants Office, Jamie Schroeder here from CEDACOG, not from City Government. I see Scott Williams down there, but I'm not quite certain actually.
I will take that one. So I'll take this opportunity to introduce Scott Williams, who is our new Assistant Director of Community and Economic Development and serving in a city planning role here in our department. So many of you may recognize Scott's name from county planning. He served many years as a transportation supervisor for county planning and other various planning roles over there. And I can speak for the mayor when I say that we're elated to have him over here in our department to help us continue to move forward. He has a vast amount of knowledge about both the county and the city that he brings to our department, and we're absolutely thrilled to welcome him.
I was just going to say, man, score.
Yeah.
Hi, Scott. It's good to have you here, and he's a city resident, which is also wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm overjoyed to be here. This is great.
Yeah, that's excellent. I was looking, being like, how many Scott Williams are there in Williamsport? And then it turned out you were one of the ones I already know. All right, but
yes.
But give me 1 second to finish calling the roll. I see Donna Fuller here from HR and Peg Woodring also from the Controller's Office. And then that's excellent. Scott, I'm glad you're here. And we will, I think, just so that we're not keeping Jamie any longer than we absolutely have to, with everyone's permission, we'll get started on today's agenda. Is that cool?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Awesome. And then Scott, at the end of Jamie Schroeder's items, if you'd like to address, say a little bit about your move to Williamsport and what you're hoping to work with community development department on, that would be awesome. All right, but today we have four items, on our Finance Committee agenda. And we are going to begin with item number 2, which is a resolution of the City Council of Williamsport to approve substantial amendments to the fiscal years 2019, 2021, and 2023 annual action plans for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnerships. Valerie, you're going to lead this one off, or you want Jamie to?
I'll just introduce it quickly. You're familiar with this process that we go through when a project has been completed with a balance or abandoned. We move funds forward into future projects to continue to use those funds appropriately and compliantly. Jamie did do this amendment, and I'm sure that she'll be happy to answer any questions you have or provide additional details than what have already been provided.
Okay, Jamie? Anything
Sure.
that you'd like to tell us about this? Okay.
So just quickly, this is part of our continuing effort to clean up funds in the city. So we have some money in the CV project, the Economic Sustainability and Recovery Project, $19,200 that we need to put into Newbury Park. We have some funds that were in Elm Park, but we're actually drawn down for Newbury Park. So we're correcting that. And then the Memorial Park exercise facility had just over $19,000 remaining. So we are moving that to Elm Park.
Okay. So nothing too exciting, but
just clean up.
What is our long-term goal? Real quick question in terms of closing out budget years. I know that it used to be that we could have 8 years open, but that's not the case anymore. Correct?
Yeah, they're getting tighter and tighter with it. So we really want to get, obviously, anything 2020 and prior done if we can. So 2019, we really want to get all this CV money cleaned up and out of here. I'm pretty sure next year is when your contract will be up for that money anyway. So Yeah, about 6 years is the time they give you now to get anything done. So,
Okay, got it. So this will help us then to close out those out budget years and get a little closer to being in the 2025 budget year, I suppose. Randy,
exactly.
Eric, questions from you?
No, I don't have any questions. Delighted to see that we're shoring up the parks some more, and that's going to pay benefits to our community. So it's a good use of this money.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Yep.
Was this money that we were already planning on having for the Elm Park project, or is this additional funding that we would have access to?
So what we do is if there's older money that needs to be expended, in this case, it's 23, so it's not that old, but it is money that's left over. We put it in a project that is moving forward so we can spend it quickly rather than create something new. So when you're in funding that is not in the current program year, you really want to put it into something that's moving rather than creating something new and delaying it. So this will go into Elm Park. We knew it would be coming because we knew Memorial Park would have this extra money left over. But then at the end, if we have any money left in Elm Park by some miracle, that'll be newer money that we can move into something else. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I appreciate the clarification.
Sure.
And so just to be clear, it does look as though currently in Elm Park, depending on what we've spent on engineering, we have about 1.15 million. Yeah.
Yeah, probably close to that. Yep.
21 and 23. And we just authorized, Eric, I think, was it 954,000? Was that
somewhere in that neighborhood? Yeah.
It was around there for the actual construction in Elm Park.
Yep.
So we're probably, to Jamie's point, miraculously close to being directly on budget, Eric, if I had to guess, by the time you also get the engineering fees out of the way, right?
That would be correct.
Okay. But hopefully there's some leftover and we can move some of the newer years out. Is the last funding, pardon me, that we have allocated from for Elm Park is 23. We don't have anything allocated out of 24 and 25, correct?
I think that's correct. I don't think we have 24, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I have so many things going.
Yeah.
So many
Sorry. Yeah.
Let me see. Oh no, that's fine. I can.
You have lots of different CDBG funds going through your head, not just ours.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions about these guys?
So this will be classified as public facilities and improvements, right? When you guys are done with it?
Public facilities, yes. And there is 2024 funds in Elm Park as well.
Okay, there are 24 funds.
Yep.
I could not remember. Got it.
Yep, 23 and 24.
Okay. Also, then, geez, it seems like we got to have something left over there, but I guess we'll have to.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any change orders or anything that come in.
Yeah. Valerie, if and when you have time, and I know that this might not happen soon, but it might be helpful to all of us to see a breakdown of what we're putting into Elm Park in total. I think
I have that pretty handy. I can send to you.
That'd be awesome if you could. I guess I'm just trying to understand the difference. I've seen some of the contracts come through, but because a lot of this stuff has happened over several years, it can be hard to remember exactly what funding went where. And sometimes I think it's useful to know the total price tag for a project.
Sure, no problem.
But okay. All right. If there are no further questions specific to this item, we'll move on. Okay. Hearing nothing. Item number 3.
Is this all the stuff that we're going over as far as the 2025 to 2029 action report, or is we going to do more of that with this next item here?
Well, we need to discuss 25 here on the next item.
Okay, all right, I'll stay quiet.
Okay. So I was just figuring we move on to that because there's not a whole lot to discuss about moving funds forward from out budget years. All right, the next item on our agenda, that item number 3, is a resolution to approve the fiscal year 2025 annual action plan for the community development block grant and home investment partnerships programs. Valerie?
CEDACOG has worked diligently on putting this extensive plan together for us. I appreciate all of their expertise in helping us to accomplish this and do so. I'll ask Jamie to pull out just the highlights of the plan for you, really focusing on the way that we're going to spend funds this year and what we've allocated. Jamie?
Sure. So this year was your 2025 to 2029 actual 5-year consolidated plan. As you can see, it's quite an effort. We do a lot of consultation with outside organizations to gather all this information together. So for 2025, our annual action plan includes street reconstruction, funds for the city parks bike path phase 1, which I know is a big initiative there in the city. There's a new bike plan coming out. And then a Scott Street Pocket Park for the Scott Street Habitat for Humanity homes are what we've decided to fund with CDBG. And then home funds, as usual, owner-occupied housing rehab, home buyer assistance, and Habitat for Humanity CHODO funding. So those are the items for the first year of this plan. We kept the goals pretty much the same. So those are, find that page here. So many pages in this thing. It's insane.
Yes, there are.
Do we think that actually reads this way?
So here we go. So community facilities, infrastructure, employment is always one of the priorities, administration, obviously. Those are the main goals. So obviously we do a lot of work on community facilities and infrastructure, which, then it's a good way to support those things without raising taxes on your residents. And obviously doing those things are the drivers for a lot of economic development activities in the city. We have often talked about doing parks and streets and those kind of improvements, because those are the things that people look for when they want to move to the city of Williamsport, or employers, large employers like UPMC or somebody like that. They're trying to retain talent, and these are the things that people are going to want to see when they are looking to move to work there. So they're always, we always find it a good way to spend the money. You can get a good park project done. You guys get a good allocation. It's a good way to, get a project done, do a complete project. Again, without raising taxes and without having to come up with matching funds, because most grants have match requirements and CDBG does not. So really moving forward, as we go through this next 5-year plan, we are still working on, obviously, cleaning up old stuff, getting the city on the right path to be in compliance with the program. And the best thing to do right now is get the most bang for our buck, get the low-hanging fruit that we know is eligible and fundable and won't cause any compliance issues that are needed, necessary projects in the city, and get them in the plan. So that's pretty much what this addresses at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we'll be looking for at the meeting would be the resolution to apply. So we're not ready to submit this yet. The comment period is over, but we can't submit it until we have allocations from HUD. So what this will allow us to do, by having you approve the plan as it is, then I can get started on the background pieces, such as environmental reviews for the streets and the parks and the bike path, so that then when we do get our allocation, we get this submitted, we are ready to move on to the next step and not just starting environmental reviews.
Got it. So that we can put those federal funds into action as quickly as possible.
Exactly. Yep.
Got it.
This is really, I'll just add on to what Jamie said. This is really fantastic timing for us that our new assistant director happens to have been working on the pilot bike lane program with Rob Cooley that he was in consultation with council about, that you asked us to consider for this year. So Scott does have the expertise of, what has been discussed with that planning. So we're definitely a step ahead of where we would have been had he not, fortunately for us, joined our staff. So it's great timing to get that project moving.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think that will be some really exciting synchronicity, and Rob Cooley must be super stoked about that too, because it will gives him kind of an inside man, I guess, huh, Scott?
Yeah.
But that as from my perspective, a way to promote greater livability within the city of Williamsport and make us a better place to live and work. I think working on a good network of bike lanes will do a lot to make the city more livable, and I think is a good way to utilize these funds for a range of improvements regardless of income. Do you know what I mean? To benefit low income residents in a way, and to really promote the safety of low income residents in our area, as well as to provide cycling facilities for those of us who do it. Maybe less is because it's a needed way to get around, and more because it's a preferred way to get around. So I act as though I bike right now, and I don't, but but I'd like to someday soon. So anyway, but yeah, okay. Randy, Eric, what comments or questions do you have on this item?
I have none.
Okay.
Excuse me. The one bullet point talking about support and encourage job creation, job retention, and job training opportunities. Excuse me for I have a sinus thing today going on. Is that going to play any part in this?
So moving forward, it is a possibility. There is funding, that would be available to do micro enterprise assistance, which, is something you've done in the past. Job creation, retention, that's, a little more complicated, but doable. But you have to remember that you still have to meet all of the other CDBG requirements, such as, the benefit to low to moderate income people. So,
right.
Like in order to do a loan to a business, you have to have that business owner come in and show you with all of their documentation that they're low income. So it gets a little intrusive. People don't really like it. It's more difficult than just giving money to keep a business in business, which would be nice if we could just do. But
right,
yeah, definitely it's something that in the future could be looked at. It's still something that the city, has as a, eligible activity. So in the future, I think it would be something we could look at. But right now with the, getting settled down for the city, it's not the best time to take on a higher risk activity like economic development.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I have a question about that. Do you know the last time we had a micro enterprise loan in the city of Williamsport?
2019 was the program year, and then you closed it out in 2020. And I know there are still people making repayments on economic development micro enterprise revolving loans. So there is money sitting in a revolving loan fund, but HUD is aware we are not prepared to spend that at this moment.
Okay, because I have, based upon the HUD reports, that you guys were still dispersing things in 2021 and 2020.
Yes, that's what it looked like to me when I looked it up in IDIS today, was that 2020 was when the accomplishments were reported on the last one.
And what criteria do we need to hit before we're ready to do this again? Just because I'm aware of the economic outlook right now that people are expecting for 2025.
Yeah.
And if we don't have anything on the books, it's more concerning about that, especially during this time period. This is going on my third year. I've been trying to advocate for these programs. And looking at this action plan, it doesn't seem like it's going to be considered, because of the language that has been used in this action plan matches the past action plans I've reviewed the past couple of years.
Right. So for 2025, I'm considering that we're still spending 2018 money. We really want to get the 2018 through 2022 done and out of here, get those activities going. We're in a good spot this year because we're getting the Little Leagues project going. We're getting Elm Park going. Newberry Park will be bid out pretty soon. So we have these large projects. They're going to spend this old money fairly quickly. And that'll put us in a much better place when we start the 2026 annual action plan, which will be here before we know it, and to be looking at some different things to develop in the city. So it's definitely going forward, something we can look at, but you know, there's a lot of steps that come with it. So we have to make sure that you have an actual program in place with program policies and procedures. You have to have underwriting criteria in place. It's a very large program, like I said, and it will take a while to develop a program in compliance with how HUD would want to see it done. But it's doable. We just have to be patient until we get all this old stuff cleaned up, and then we can start looking at that.
Well, so I was under the understanding that this was going to be occurring over the past couple of years. It sounds like we're starting anew again. I just want to confirm that's my understanding of it.
Valerie, do you want to speak to the projects that were selected? As far
Kevin,
as
could you
know,
repeat your question? I'm sorry, I didn't understand I couldn't hear your question.
So it just sounds like we're starting over with a lot of the stuff. It doesn't sound like this has even been worked on over the past couple of years as even a consideration.
I think that would be fair to say, Kevin. There hadn't been a lot of activity in the community development department. A lot of new thinking going into it over the last couple of years. There was a lot of kind of catching up happening at best. Is that an accurate summary, Valerie?
Yes.
We do have new,
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We do have new leadership in place there. And we know, actually, the question that I was hoping to ask was, I believe we have home buyer funding in community development right now, correct? And we have
yes, that's part of your home program. That's correct.
Right. But we have like $900,000 or something like that in returned.
We have a significant amount of funding available in program income account. Yes.
Yeah. And that is money that I think that all of us would like to see get back out in the community and help with some of the housing issues that we're having. Were it me, while I do think that micro enterprise loans could play a real key role, especially in the potential economic environment we may find ourselves in here as the next couple of years play out. I think the housing crisis in Williamsport might be an even more serious thing that we need to start attempting to address. But, you know, to Jamie and Valerie's point, this is funding that we have to be exceptionally careful when it's expended. We really have to structure the programs so that they are impeccable in terms of handing out this money, or we will get in trouble. But you know, I think that funding, especially the funding that we can use for like housing assistance, to me could be pivotal in fixing some issues that we're having in the city right now.
You're absolutely right, Liz. And you had said it really well earlier when you said there's new thinking happening in the department. So there's new thinking happening. There's new expertise and backgrounds. And one of the great things is that we do have the ability to take a step back and look at what the true needs of the city are and how we can tailor our programs. And just because we had a home buyer program written with certain criteria that worked 25 years ago when it was written, you know, that program might not necessarily work for us with the same criteria in 2025 and moving forward. And that program specifically, not to give, you know, too much information, but when you're looking at eligible buyers for homes, we can only use those funds for low to moderate income folks. So when you think about folks in that income range of $50,000 to $60,000 annually, there are not a lot of folks in that range purchasing homes in the city right now. We're all very familiar with the cost of housing and purchasing homes. So we certainly have inquiries about those funds, but the way that the program was set up previously isn't lending itself to be successful right now, because folks in the low to moderate income bracket are not purchasing homes in a way that our program works for them. So it'll be to Scott and I to work with the mayor to really take a serious look at what the needs in the community are, what the eligible HUD activities are, and how we can tailor our programs with what you said was new thinking. And that's exactly what it is. How can we tailor our programs to meet the needs of the city? And like Jamie Schroeder has mentioned, repeatedly, we have some cleanup work to do here, and we're doing that diligently, and we're restructuring and restaffing, and there's a significant amount of work happening here every day, and we're doing a great job to move everything forward to the best of our ability.
About that. Thank you, Valerie, for that input, and I think that's an accurate summary of what's going on in our department right now. I think it's also worth mentioning, and I'm sure you're already exploring that. There are, and Randy might be able to speak to this better than I can. There are partnerships available in the greater Williamsport region, say with STEP, which does millions of dollars of housing rehab work on an annual basis in the surrounding communities, to try to maximize the monies that we are receiving through HUD. And I think the hope within Williamsport over the last couple of years has been that the department that was originally when Randy and I got elected close to 16 years ago now, Randy.
That's exactly right.
The department that was originally more or less known as CDVG, because the sole funding for that department came from community development block grants. And the department operated kind of almost as a separate entity from the city, utilizing only these grants for low income housing assistance, et cetera. The vision for that moving forward, we know needs to become broader based and a little more visionary, and needs to involve the input of city funds, the input, the concepts of community development, livability, housing assistance, and enterprise assistance in a way that it hasn't previously. But we are making that transition now, and we are going to be making it at a difficult time, but also a time when I think we have a lot of opportunities to do real good in our community. So we need to focus on getting it on the ground, but I think we also need to focus on getting it right, so that a decade from now, HUD's not coming after us asking for a whole bunch of that money back, and we don't have it. And ideally, we need to focus on doing things with that funding that brings it back to the city so that we can spend it again, which is what's happened with these home buyer funds that are currently back with the city. How do we turn those around and make those funds that continue to do work in the community for decades now, and create a program that allows that funding to be recycled efficiently without this kind of backlog that we had over the last couple of years. All right, I think I said my piece for a second. Valerie, anybody else who wants to chime in?
I hate to run, guys, but you let me know if you need anything else from me, okay? Because I got to run to my next thing. But
I thought so. Thank you, Jamie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I am happy to do anything else, when anybody needs to. But yeah, for right now, just let me know if anything comes up. But I'll zoom into the meeting on Thursday.
Okay, we'll see you there.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I think everything you said is perfect, Liz, and your point to using a subrecipient for some of these funds and allowing the experts to do the work. When I first came into this role, the mayor connected me with lots of other cities like ours who were doing similar work to us to find out how they were doing it, and just the thought of us running home rehab projects in-house was not even something that anyone is considering anymore. That's just not the way that it's done. And we can continue to do that work by utilizing the people in the community who are experts in it through subrecipient agreements, and have staff here to be doing new and innovative programming and planning. That's certainly the way we'll be looking to move the program forward.
I think that'd be excellent. Yeah, Randy, I don't know, what do you know about the housing, and sorry for the background noise, guys, the housing rehab programs that STEP is running? I know that you're a member out there.
STEP has a few different avenues. They have the subsidies from weatherization from the utilities for housing rehab. That's very effective use of the money that they get. And there's that. There's rental assistance for people to keep them in their housing. And yeah, that kind of rehab is pretty valuable that STEP does. There's also what was the organization that Lycoming Development? What was that?
Lycoming Neighborhood Development Corporation.
Lycoming Neighborhood Development. Yes. That's not functioning anymore, is it?
They were actually in contact with me recently.
Oh, are they?
They were in contact with me recently. They're looking to reform and potentially hire an executive director, and they reached out to me to discuss the potential of them being a community housing development organization as a subrecipient to the city's funding, which we're required to do annually with 15% of our funding that we currently are allocating to Habitat, but we can have more than one of those organizations. So they reached out to me recently to discuss future collaboration. And then also Habitat does some of that similar home rehab work. So we definitely have lots of great organizations in the city doing work that we can be supportive of without being redundant.
Right. Okay. Great. Yeah.
Valerie, I got a question too. Is there any chance of using similar organizations to lessen the risk that the city is exposed to support economic development?
So the criteria that we're required to follow for HUD funds, anyone that we have a subrecipient agreement with, we are held to the same standards for compliance. So then we just basically serve as the compliance officers for that organization to make sure that they are compliant with what we have to report on. So it's an extensive amount of work for the city to have subrecipient agreements for CDBG and home funds. It takes the actual physical work off of us, but it doesn't change any of the required compliance.
I'm just trying to get something out to the businesses as well, because whether or not we have it on file right now, I think the only thing we actually do have that's working from the city's organization itself is just the LOTA program. And if I'm incorrect in that, please correct me, but if we can get something out to them, even if it's, a subrecipient agreement through another organization, I know that would be appreciated by the businesses, because in reality, they do pay more taxes than any individual taxpayer pays, considering that an individual pays an income and real estate, whereas a business will pay all of those taxes as well as local service and business privilege.
Right. So I think, Kevin, there is another pool of funding. The Industrial Properties Commission oversees, I believe what was the amount? It's like a $600,000 loan pool within the county, but $300,000 of it, unless my information is old because this all went down a while ago, is exclusively to be lent within the city. And I don't believe that as of at least a couple of years ago that funding was being really spoken for in any way. I suspect, much like Valerie said, we have a lot of programs that were structured during different economic environments than the one in which we currently find ourselves. And what happens is those aren't in some capacities within the region, like living programs. Do you know what I mean? We don't keep them up to date with current economic trends. And then you have a situation where you're offering a 3% interest rate and and banks are offering 2.5%. And your revolving loan pool funding is not attractive when it comes with a bunch more reporting requirements and the interest rates are higher than you could get anywhere else. That shouldn't be the case right now. So I'm not sure how that body of funding with the IPC, how it's spoken for at this point. I think is it the chamber that mostly answers questions about that, Randy? I could look into that.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not
believe
familiar with that specific source of funds, but I can tell you that I am on a committee. The chamber and the city have a revolving loan fund that is available to businesses, and that's just not businesses in the city, that's in the county as well. And we have several downtown businesses that have taken advantage of those revolving loans to do improvements. Even in the 10 months that I've been here, I've reviewed several applications that have been approved for revolving loans. And then also businesses who have the capital to make the dollar for dollar investment can apply for RACP funding. So that's the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program that's offered by DCD, and Melanie manages that. She's in the process of managing 5 or 6 RACP grants right now for businesses in the city that have applied with the city as the sponsor. So there's a lot of that happening as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should keep an eye out for state funding sources that might be a little easier to deal with. Valerie, I know that RACP funding's gotten a lot of press over the last handful of years, but even the city has had a hard time obtaining reimbursement through that program.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and I know a handful of private entities at this point that have simply never obtained reimbursement for funding that they spent with a theoretical RACP guarantee. I'm not picking on the program exactly, but I am saying it's not a perfect fit for a lot of people. And,
it's very difficult to manage. Melanie can speak to how difficult it is to manage.
Yeah, right. Well, they at one point gave us a redevelopment and capital assistance program grant to buy a scoreboard at Bowman Field. We then went out and bought the scoreboard and submitted forms for reimbursement, and they said, you can't use that money to buy a scoreboard. And
you'll be happy to know that we're in the final process of that reimbursement, Melanie.
Yeah, I know. We did finally get the money. I think we had to bring like all of our state legislators to bear to get it, despite the fact that the whole thing seemed, it was like something out of Catch-22.
Yeah.
But okay, anyway, we don't need to belabor this point. Kevin, I would say that there should be, to Valerie's point, a revolving loan pool, half of which I think is dedicated exclusively to city borrowers, and then the other half of which is available both within the city and the county, out there for constituents as well. And I don't think that anyone is disagreeing that we need a few more carrots to put out there for businesses in the city. I do think, however, that it is also worth noting that nationally speaking, the trend is at least split on whether you're attempting to attract businesses or simply attempting to attract workers who are not necessarily working for a business within the city. And my understanding is that Lock Haven has been relatively successful with that, with some offering resettlement funds to people who are working remotely, who are moving to Clinton County. And that to me would be something not that we could ever do with community development block grant funding, but something that would fall under the larger rubric of community development within the city, and would ideally, allow us to attract some really great community members who, are working from home and living within the city and invested in the community.
Liz, you had said when I moved into this position that the department had kind of transitioned to, primarily managing a dwindling HUD entitlement, I think were the words that you used, and that your vision was for us to be doing more than that. And that is definitely still our vision. Our vision is not to just use CDBG and home funds. Our vision is to use those in a compliant, effective way and hire a staff that can continue to expand community and economic development in the city of Williamsport in a way that it hasn't been expanded in the past. And I know I certainly appreciate the grace of you, council, and the mayor, and giving me the time to find the appropriate staff and resources to make that happen. So it's happening.
We believe that it is, Valerie, and we thank you for your efforts there. I know that it was a little bit of a, community development had a couple of years of really sort of losing direction, losing focus, and it can be really hard to pull a department back in from that. So we appreciate that you've taken it on and that you seem to be making some real progress and pretty quickly.
Thank you.
But Scott, I don't know if you've gathered yet, but we have some really high expectations. So no, but I think that's yeah. I'm excited to see that we are hiring in the department and that we are hiring qualified individuals, and excited to see where we head with this. I certainly, to the extent that I can be a resource, and I'm assuming the same can be said for Randy and Eric. We would be delighted to help to provide resources for the department, or at least advice or ideas or rabid criticism, on what needs to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, does anybody have any further comments on item number 3 here?
I have one question, but it's more of a request than a question.
Sure.
So, Liz, as a business owner, you're going to be receiving this shortly, but last year we started including a list of programs that my office has been researching with our tax licenses. So if you got your
You
taxes
presume that I opened the mail. What's that?
I said, if you got your tax license in the mail from my office, we would have included a list of programs that we had researched on our own and said, hey, look, here's some things you guys can keep an eye out for. I know we have the LERTA program on file. The industrial loan program is a new one for me. If you could send some information on that as well. And then Valerie, since you are working with the Chamber of Commerce, if you could just make a small request with them to provide the programs they do have available, I would like to include those with that mailing that comes out probably towards the beginning of May.
Sure, it's all on their website.
Kevin, I would think, I think that there are a couple of us who have reason to perhaps try and sit down with Jason Fink sometime in the next couple of weeks, and perhaps maybe you would want to join us in that effort. It might be a little bit more of a fly on the wall, not in the wall, sort of presence for you. But that might be, just to develop a relationship with Jason might not be a terrible idea.
Well, I've already discussed certain things with Bo. It's just a matter of, formalizing what goes into the letter. I'd rather have it come from direct from the organization because they're the experts on what their programs are rather than my interpretation. So I may include things that, are not in the program scope. That's why I asked for stuff to come directly from the organization rather than me trying to put it on there under my own interpretation.
Yeah. Well, I think, the chamber, I don't think the chamber is, but I think one could view the chamber as one of the primary resources for business resources in the community. So it certainly wouldn't hurt to reach out to them to ask what they're bringing to the table. I think that there are also other things, and to the extent that I can find any information on those, I'm happy to forward it to you. But
please,
yeah. But I would also reach out to Jason because I think he would be. Obviously, I am merely summarizing things that I've learned over the last 16 years that may or may not still be true in some cases. So get into the root of things might be a better way to get accurate information. All right. Is that everything for item 3?
Yes.
All right. Hearing nothing else, then we'll move back to item number 1, which is transfer ordinance number 1. And Jamie Livermore, you're taking this one?
Yep, that's me.
Okay.
So transfer ordinance number 1 is a revision to the 2025 Act 13 budget. We need to add some funds to the flood levy line item. In 23 and 24, there were resolutions approved for WSP to do some what is called SQRA and items to the levy, which stands for semi-quantitative risk analysis. We did not create we did not give the flood levy line item any budget this year in Act 13. not realizing that this entire project was not completed and fully paid for. So the two resolutions, the total project, maximum amount in the two resolutions combined is 169,900. The remainder for 2025 of that project will be 72,000 and about $41 that we will have left in 2025 for that project to pay. So this ordinance is to put a budget into the flood levy line item so that we are able to pay those invoices when they come in.
Got it. So just to be clear, these are prior contracts. They have not exceeded the budget originally set on these contracts.
No, so in 2023, an original budget was set of 77,000, and then in 24, an amendment was done to that budget to add another 92,900. So the total budget is 169,900 as of the resolution in February of 24, and it is my understanding that at this point there's no change to that budget. We have paid 63,000 so far in 2023. We have invoices to pay about 34,400 for 2024 activity, and then the remainder would be a little over 72,000 for 2025. And if it would go into 26 and the whole 72 wouldn't be paid in 25, we'll make sure that that's allowed in the reflected in the 2026 budget.
Okay. Now I'm going to open a can of worms with this, and I'll have to talk to Adam Yoder about this, but this funding, we took money. So we do not have any funding left in the levy allocation from ARPA funding, correct?
I believe that, no, there is no flood money. You put it, yeah, you guys reallocated it to somewhere else, correct?
We put it in the emergency and reserve fund.
Yes, correct.
Right. And I would guess, well, we can have, I'm sure, a robust discussion about this on Thursday as to whether it is in our best interest to keep the funding in the emergency and reserve fund, even though that's what we set that funding aside in part to fund levy work, or whether we should take it from Act 13. I don't think
in 24, there was 175,000 set aside for the flood levy. We just hadn't received these invoices until like end of 24, beginning of 25 that were for 2024 work, for us to recognize that, you know, we didn't spend any of the 175 in 2024, but we actually did with, you know, these invoices that have just recently come in.
Got it. So you're telling me the funding was set aside from Act 13 in 24.
Correct.
But we didn't spend it.
Correct.
And now we are basically moving it into the 25 budget year.
Yeah, actually a little bit less than. So we are going to utilize, since 2024 had a line item with budget in it, we are going to utilize 34,400 of that to pay the invoice that was accumulated in 24. It was like the end of the year in 24. And then the 72,000 will be in the 2025 budget.
Got it. And we had decided in 24, I don't know why I don't remember this decision, to take that funding out of Act 13 instead of ARPA, as we originally stated we were going to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that decision was made. I just know that there was a line item specific to the levy with 175,000 in the budget line item.
Got it. Okay. Got it. And so theoretically then, well, where does this leave us? We'd gotten a summary at the end of last budget year of how much surplus we had in Act 13, and it wasn't a ton. It was a couple $100,000, I think.
Yeah, this will reduce that by, yeah.
Okay.
So
I wasn't sure whether that was accounting for things that had been allocated but not used, or whether that was only what we'd actually used.
No, it was actual. Yeah,
Okay.
So this will reduce that.
Okay, got it. All right. But anyway, it was an obligation that we previously incurred. We have once or twice run up against increases in cost of services when doing levy work.
Yeah, it does seem like
Hoping it
the
doesn't
levy work, gets a lot of change orders and a lot of increases based on what they're doing. I did ask WSP for because of course I don't know a lot about levy work, and I did ask them for kind of explanations of the work that was included in this SQRA, and they did provide me with just like a simplified explanation of what they do for the SQRA, and then they also provided me with some documentation for that. So I did give that to Bill and the mayor so that they both have any information that has come from this SQRA.
Yeah. Wood is very good at providing documentation about what they're doing.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yes, and they did. They definitely did.
But we have not really broken ground on anything on the levy yet. Correct, Randy? After
No, we haven't.
Yeah, we did the relief wells.
The last projections we heard from the engineering is that it could be another 3 years before that happens. So there is.
And how many millions of dollars?
Yeah. You mean in engineering costs up to this point?
Yeah. No. I mean, there's that question. How much have we spent? Which nobody seems to know. But the secondary question is how much more money can we spend before anybody will actually just break ground on doing something that fixes the problem?
Liz, in the absence of Bill Scott or Scott Livermore being here, I can provide a brief update that we have received our $8 million federal earmark that's geared towards a levy that has been released. So we are in the process right now of writing the multiple RFPs that will go out for the multiple pieces that were funded in that. And we are hopeful that those RFPs will go out this spring and that work will start taking place this year.
That would be excellent. Can we make certain that we work with a variety of firms in this effort?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Because honestly, as far as I'm aware, Wood is pretty much the only firm that has done anything with the levy thus far. And not much has happened with the levy thus far. And that's not me presuming to say one way or the other that I understand the work or that I understand the specific requirements, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not passing judgment necessarily, but I would like to see some other people involved in this project. I would feel more confident, I think, that we were moving as fast as we could be if we had multiple firms that were taking on pieces of the project, and we could see the speed at which everyone was moving to make things happen. I don't know, Randy, you've been a lot more intimately involved with the levy work than I have. Would you concur with that assessment?
It's that might be complicated, but I mean, that might be doable. I think things are kind of in transition right now.
Yeah.
Going forward, and we do have, as Valerie's pointed out, I was speaking about the past, but in the present, yes, there's going to be work done that's been kind of dormant, but ready to go.
Good.
Yeah. So that, there's things are opening up, let's put it that way. And I think once we get some momentum going with actual construction and everything else that's needed, will begin to fall into place, I believe. And there's a lot of determination right now, I'd say, more than I've seen before under the models that we've had with our relationship with the county. There's determination to make this move and have it happen.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting to hear. Thanks, Randy. And thanks, Val, for chiming in there too. Anyway, none of that particularly applies to this. But
Well, it's all connected.
yeah, but I'm glad to hear that we're about to start actually moving on the levy project.
Yeah,
It's been hanging over our heads for almost the entire time that Randy and I have been on council, and
it has, hasn't it?
yeah, yeah. And there's this sort of feeling of glacial inability to get anywhere. That is, yeah.
Well, yeah, in defense of the city and everybody else,
Oh yeah.
the goalposts kept moving.
Right. Yeah, I'm not by any stretch laying that at our feet or necessarily at anyone's feet. But
yeah, it wasn't engineering or anything like that. It was the three legs of the federal government that kind of weren't coordinated at that point. And you know, well, you well know as well that it got bigger and bigger and bigger and more complicated. So
and I think the problem is the longer we wait, the more complicated it's going to get in some way. So we just got to move at some point. And,
I mean, the main point is the longer we wait, the more we're exposed to a catastrophe of weather, and we know how bad that can get now anywhere in the country. So
right, exactly. We need to get this taken care of here, hopefully.
Yes, exactly.
So that's exciting news about the $8 million.
There's the other money. There's another, the EDA grant is that's $3 million, I believe.
That should get us halfway there, right? Anyway,
yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, well, if I'm hearing nothing further on this specific transfer ordinance, can we move on from this one?
I'm ready.
Janice is out there yelling and screaming that we're about to go over the hour mark, and she doesn't. Anyway, thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. Item number 4 on our agenda is any related items. Does anyone out there have anything to introduce for the good of the order?
I don't have any related items unless you want Scott to, even mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, Scott to do an intro.
Scott, is there anything that you'd like to say to us? Will you be at Thursday night's meeting? In which case that might actually be it might in some ways be a more valuable time to have you introduce yourself if you plan to be there on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'll be there Thursday.
Okay, I think that'd be excellent then.
Yeah.
Because I think actually Randy and I probably know you better than anybody else on council does. And so it would be, I think, advantageous for the rest of the members of the council to get an introduction to. All right. Then we'll skip you, Scott, for the time being. And I will see everyone on Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye, guys.
Take care, everybody.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Bye.